everyone for joining in. Really appreciate you taking time on a weekend and joining us. I'm Rashmi, founder of Wellbeing, and today, as my co-host and an expert here, we have Lesley with us. Lesley comes with over a decade of experience in working with women, navigating through perimenopause, menopause, and really helping them make that transition more smoothly. Our today's conversation is titled as The In Between, primarily because while menopause is often associated with just hormone change, um, a lot of women experience it even in a much bigger way. And what I mean by that is there is a shift in how our body feels. There are shift in how we feel about ourselves. And primarily in between because we are in that transition phase where we no longer associate with who we used to be and have yet not figured out who we are becoming. And that's the in between, and then the objective and the intention of this particular conversation today is to understand why behind all these changes and this transition, and also understand how can we navigate it better, how can we better prepared. Yeah, with that we'll spend just a few minutes in understanding a bit about you. um, if you are able to um, either scan this, and in case if you're joining in from the phone, we can drop in the link in the chat. um, let me also try just sharing the link in the chat. This is just a quick anonymous poll which will help us in understanding um, what are we looking at today. Leslie, are you able to drop the link in the chat? You're on mute.
On mute. I did put the link in the chat.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
lovely.
so it should be there. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, lovely.
Mm.
Let me also maybe share my screen for this if you're able to view it.
It's always really useful, helpful for us all to see that we're in a similar boat,
Yeah,
isn't it? That we're wondering what perimenopause is, what menopause is, and how we can support ourselves through it.
yeah. I'll move to the next one.
Yeah, we can come back to
Yeah,
this maybe in a minute. I'll keep an eye on it from my end.
yeah, yeah.
I'm going to say,
Yeah. There's more fatigue, more,
hmm.
you know,
I
either.
can't see the link. Where can I
Oh,
get
shall
the
I
link,
send? I'll
please?
send it again. Here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
we can drop the chat in.
Yeah,
Text
can you
message.
see that in the chat now?
yeah, yeah.
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 Hmm.
Would you like us to go to the previous one? We can do that.
No, the previous one I was able to. Yes. I'll just do
Yeah.
this.
Okay. Fatigue and low energy, totally. There's a lot of it there,
Hmm.
even before, and yes, a lot of weight fluctuations.
Hmm. Yeah, that can, and then those things are also tied together, aren't they, too? So,
Yeah,
hmm.
yeah. While we can continue,
Hmm.
adding this to the poll,
Yeah.
we'll go back to. Are you still able to view my screen, right?
Yes.
Now, before we dive into today's topic of midlife transition and menopause, navigating menopausal symptoms, I want to share an observation of about what led me to start Olvi. Over the last few years, I've spoken to many women, dealing with navigating hormone changes, be it PCOS, PMOS, thyroid, and menopause for that matter. They had different diagnoses, but they had the same story to share. They said, hey, we got a diagnosis, we got a prescription, we leave for the appointment, but after that we are left, to figure out everything by ourselves. And with all these symptoms, answering all those questions in terms of what to eat, how do I navigate my energy, how do I improve my sleep, how do I manage brain fog, how do I increase my productivity, all these questions we are left to answer all by ourselves in between appointments. We hardly get, I think, 1 hour of clinical care in a year. We have 15 minutes appointment with the doctor, and 3 to 4 visits in a year. That's maximum 1 hour of the 1 hour of clinical care. And when we're dealing with these conditions which are hormonal in nature, there are all these questions that we need answers to, and that's the gap where Always sits. Always a between visit care platform where we help women in understanding the why behind their symptom, understanding the pattern correlation between the symptom, and helping them understand that if their energy has reduced, if they're having more regular brain fog, what essentially is the factor behind all of this. We come in the moments when when our symptoms flare up, the moments when our anxiety is at its peak, nights when we're not able to get any sleep, right? Those are the moments when we ask ourselves those questions that, is this okay, is there something that I should be concerned with, and what's the next step I should take. And that's the mission and intention with which we've started Alvi, to help women kind of navigate that gap, that support that is required between their clinical appointments. With one of our thyroid patients that we worked with, her TSH values actually improved, biomarker values actually improved in a period of 8 weeks, from a 4.48 to a 2.13. Her depression frequency became zero from a 33% weekly frequency, and her therapy session frequency reduced from a weekly to a fortnightly. More importantly, like I think most of you mentioned in the poll, that fatigue and energy is one of the major concerns, right? In her case, her energy score improved from a 5 average of 5 to an 8.5. She looked at us, experienced a 70% improvement in her energy levels throughout the week. And having worked with all the women with different hormonal conditions over the last couple of months, what we have noticed is, while women do face challenges in managing symptoms, I think what they also need help is in understanding the why. They need help in understanding why is their anxiety at its peak, why are they experiencing weight gain or weight changes, why is their energy down, why their productivity is at a loss, and why are they feeling differently, right, in their body, in their identity. With that, if there are any questions related to this, more than happy to answer. We'll put in a couple of links in the chat as well. But with that, we'll move to today's topic, which is around midlife transition. Really, and the reason we're calling it midlife transition, right, and not using menopause specifically as a term, is also because menopause is more than just hormonal changes, more than just shift in our bodies, changes in our bodies. It is a transition in terms of the way we show up in our life, the way we show up in our relationship, the way we the way we show up at our work. And this transition is much bigger, and hence midlife transition. Just a bit on the biological part before we get into the emotional aspect and the identity aspect. I know a lot of us are taught that menopause is essentially when estrogen declines. While estrogen rises and declines dramatically during this phase, progesterone declines relatively, starts declining earlier. Yeah, think of estrogen as a hormone associated with mood, energy, sleep, focus, bone health. Progesterone, on the other hand, is a hormone associated with Progesterone is a hormone associated is as a body's own natural calming hormone. So you will think of it as, that helps us in stress regulation, our stress resilience, our emotional regulation, our response towards, stress in general in life. And while there is a decline in both the hormones during menopause, years leading up to menopause, which is known as perimenopause, which can last for a couple of years before actually menopause hits, is where estrogen and progesterone both decline, but they decline at an unpredictable fashion. There are more fluctuation. They do not decline in a smooth pattern, and that unpredictability. There'll be months when things will feel normal, symptoms will feel manageable. Then there'll be months when things will just feel harder. It'll feel like, hey, I am no longer the person that I used to be. I'm feeling irritable. I'm having more fights at home. I'm feeling more triggered at work. Maybe I'm not feeling that confidence that I used to feel earlier. All of that is two aspects to that. One, very unpredictable in nature, and that unpredictability is what leads to a lot of chaos and confusion associated with this phase of transition from pre-menopause to perimenopause and then post-menopause. Yeah. And the second aspect is just the awareness that feeling irritable, feeling a shift in identity, change in our productivity, having higher anxiety can actually be due to fluctuation in hormones. That itself leads to a lot of can bring a lot of sense of understanding, and not feeling like I don't know who I am and blaming ourselves as individuals. And these symptoms, because hormones have receptors throughout the body, not just our reproductive organs, the changes is not just in our menstrual cycle. These symptoms can show in different ways and form, from hot flashes, night sweats, to fatigue, to weight changes, gains, and redistribution. We'll suddenly feel that we have accumulated belly fat. Otherwise, we used to be slim and lean. We'll have more changes in our moods, anxiety, depression, and we'll also see disturbances in our sleep. There were times when we could easily get 8 hours of sleep, and suddenly we'll see that we are waking up 3 a.m. in the morning or 4 a.m. in the morning and not able to fall asleep again. And while there are all these physical symptoms, they impact our emotional well-being. And when our emotional well-being is impacted, that leads to then an impact on our physical health. So they go hand in hand, not in isolation. And that is the reason that perimenopause specifically can look like feeling irritable, having mood swings, having reduced motivation, waking up in the morning and feeling like I've lost interest, not having the same confidence that you used to have earlier, feeling more anxious more worried, more anxious, in day-to-day life, or just feeling sad without any reason. And while biology matters, hormones matter, there is a much bigger shift because of these unpredictable fluctuations in our hormones. There is a much bigger shift that takes place, a shift in identity, a shift in who we are becoming. And with that, whatever I could share from my end, now I'll invite Lesley. Like I said, she's an integrated women's health coach, having more than over a decade of experience working with women through perimenopause, menopause, and really helping women navigate this transition much more smoothly. What I personally love about her work is that she brings a more holistic picture, not just helping women understand what's happening in their body, but also helping them understand what does this mean and how does this impact in their daily lives, and how can they be better prepared, as leaders, as women leaders showing up at work. Yeah. With that, Lesley, over to you, and please feel free to add anything that you may want to, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. I think it's really interesting. Rashmi and I started having conversations a month or so ago, and I'm really interested in what Alvi is doing in terms of plugging the gap. And what we loved about those conversations was that there is so much that we can do through educating ourselves and understanding ourselves, as well as seeing ourselves in different ways as we navigate this midlife phase. As Rashmi said, I've spent over a decade working with women in midlife and menopause. I'm a certified integrative women's health coach with the Integrative Women's Health Institute in the US, I'm also an NLP practitioner, and initially I qualified as a personal trainer. I got interested in menopause about 12 years ago when I was struggling with my own burnout, and I am somebody and I was exhausted. My youngest son wasn't sleeping. I had an impossible job in public policy underneath a coalition government, and the lack of sleep and the stress at work became a real issue. And then, shall I share from here?
No, that's completely okay.
All right. And the lack of sleep at work became a real issue, but it was and it kind of, I left my job. I trained and when I spoke to the doctors, they offered me was antidepressants. But a friend of mine suggested that perhaps it was perimenopause, and I was 38 and fairly horrified at that idea. But it got me curious. And so when I initially trained as a personal trainer and started working with women, mainly in that midlife phase, I felt like I wanted to know and understand more. So it led me to doing my first certification called the Third Age Woman. And since then, I've done 4 others and redone the Third Age Woman because information is updated all of the time. I've also mentored health coaches, and have worked as a master coach for a US-based organization too. Worked with hundreds of women in the UK and around the world. And I currently offer one-to-one support, group programs, online education, and retreat experiences. I've been featured in national press like The Guardian in the UK, and even what's it called? I can't remember, a country-based, because I talked about the connection between perimenopause, well-being, and nature. And I've also been navigating my own perimenopause for 10 years and actually enjoying it most of the time because I approach it with curiosity rather than with dread or a sense that it's actually going to be a really negative thing. So when we talk about perimenopause, we can move on. Thank you, my love. It's a transition phase. We can talk about the hormones, which I love those images that you shared there, Rashmi. And we can see that we kind of go on a bit of a roller coaster between estrogen and progesterone going up and down, and progesterone mainly going down. But it's also a chance to learn more about ourselves, both our own hormones. I think I've learned more about my menstrual cycle in the last 12 years than I knew in the entire 38 years before that. And I feel a bit like a missed opportunity. I started tracking my cycle, getting to know myself, coming off hormonal contraception in order to really think about who it was, where I was and who I was in each stage of my menstrual cycle before it disappeared and changed. I see this phase as a chance for us to learn more about ourselves, to understand our hormones and how they connect to our health and our mindset and how we're viewing ourselves in the world. And I also see it as a really important opportunity to create habits that support our long-term well-being. The habits that we get into in this stage of life can help us with our bone health, keeping our muscle mass, our brain health, our heart health, and our overall quality of life long term. And it's easier to form those habits now rather than later, and it really pays off. There is all kinds of research that demonstrates the value of strength training a couple of times a week, making sure that you're moving, that you'll stay connected, that you stay interested in learning, and how that benefits you long term. So I wanted to just I can be very brief about this because Rashmi's already talked about hormone change. All estrogen, progesterone, testosterone are all released by the ovaries pre-menopause. Post-menopause, menopause being the one day, 12 months after your last menstrual cycle. So you haven't bled for a year, then you hit this one day that's menopause. After that, you're post-menopausal. We still are post-menopause. We still have some estrogen, testosterone released via our from fat cells and from our adrenals, and very, very small amounts of progesterone. And you can see how this understanding my cycle really helped me understand this midpoint where estrogen is high, progesterone is higher, can mean that we are very much more. That's when I call those my superwoman days. which aren't quite the same now that I'm 50, but they superwoman days when you've got lots of energy, you're really optimistic and you can do more things. Whereas when you get to the end of the cycle, when the progesterone and estrogen both drop off and we're a little bit more irritated, we've lost those calming hormones. That's the point at which you want to withdraw, or might want to withdraw a little bit more from the world. Tracking my cycle has helped me understand a little bit more about how I feel during those phases, and actually to plan my work and social life around that a little bit as I go forwards. It's getting slightly more unpredictable now as my cycle changes. The key thing I would love you to walk away from this webinar today is to understand that your menopause and perimenopause are not a bad thing. Elephants, orcas, and blue whales go through the menopause, and what majestic and amazing creatures those are. And the reason we believe that that's why they go through that post-menopause life is to ensure that the rest of the family group thrives. When you've got post-menopausal females bringing their giving their wisdom and their strength and their knowledge and their sense of community, we can thrive. But it's important that we meet our needs, we tune into our cycles, and we know who we are next. There's an identity shift that comes with menopause and midlife that needs addressing. It's like a new opportunity, new link with yourself. So what I wanted to do, but almost before I even start talking about these big emotions that come up in the menopause phase, is just to ask us just to very briefly just stop and be still. So I'm going to get you to, wherever you are, if you can sit still with your feet grounded on the floor, hands resting on your thigh, and potentially just dropping your eyes, gaze down, or closing your eyes, and just for a minute, take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Notice how you're connected to the ground, how you're stable in your chair. Notice how supported you feel. Deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. One more of those. In and out. And then just allow yourself to breathe normally and with your eyes closed or your gaze down. I'd love it if you could imagine yourself about 20 years into the future. So in my case, that's me viewing myself as a 70-year-old. And I want you to view yourself 20 years into the future and just think about where you are, who you want to be with, what's going to be, what kind of things will you be doing, and how you want to feel in your body. I want this to be an optimistic and positive view. And just see if you can briefly connect with that image. Imagine yourself saying hi to this future version of you, and maybe even asking her how it is that she got there and what she could do, what advice she might give you. And then you can just say thank you to her and just come back into thinking about your breath. In through the nose, coming back into your body, wriggling your toes, opening your eyes, just gently shaking your shoulder. And what I in my work with clients, I take them through a much longer version of that. But being able to connect to our longer term version of ourselves in a positive way can help us create positive momentum for the long term. I wanted to talk about rage as one of the big emotions of the menopause transition. So go back, Rashmi. So there we go. That this is something that I have has come up with clients quite often. They come to me perhaps because they want, right, I need to get in, I need to be better about looking after my health. I need to get back into habits around eating well and moving more. But then we talk about their emotional moment where they are right now. And often this moment of when they have that anger and that trigger happy temper and a red mist that comes down can feel quite shaming. So perhaps losing your temper with your children when they're not getting ready for school, or you've got a really irritating colleague at work who just will not listen to what it is that you're trying to get across, or simply sitting in traffic and somebody cuts across you and behaves like an idiot. And suddenly that emotion is enormous, that anger, that rage is enormous. And what this is, it isn't a character flaw. It isn't a sudden change of who it is that you are. It's an opportunity for us to get curious about, okay, it's an opportunity for us to get curious about how we, an opportunity for us to get curious about who we are in that moment and how we can shift and change. So, for example, I had a client who came to me who was really struggling with her hormones, with her work, with her health, clients' health, with her children's health issues, feeling like she was juggling the impact of an NHS job, plus some self-employed work, plus family issues. And what she'd noticed is that she kept turning into kind of this whirling dervish, this angry woman, and she didn't recognize herself in that moment. And that's not who she wanted to be for the long term. So we looked at what the triggers could be. So some of that was around blood sugar. Some of it was around her hormonal cycle. So tracking her cycle was helpful. We looked at the moments in the day when she was more likely to get angry and thought about, well, what has she had enough breakfast? Has she had perhaps too much caffeine? Was that triggering this high adrenaline response that meant that her brain couldn't respond from a calm place? But also we talked about boundary issues. So one of the issues was that in her NHS work, there was a sense that she was being required to see more and more patients. We talked about this at the beginning, in less and less time. So she wasn't able to serve her patients in the way that she wanted to. And she was feeling very restricted by when she was and wasn't allowed to take time off to deal with her children's childcare issues. So we worked on creating a vision for what would work really well for her, what kind of life she wanted. So we took almost the kids and the NHS out of the equation, the work out of the equation, just briefly, to help her to understand what a more ideal life would look like, where the boundaries were, what kind of time she wanted for herself, what kind of time she wanted with her family. And she wanted more time, more holidays. She wanted time to visit her family who lived in another country. She wanted time to be able to spend more time. She wanted to start running again. And then identified those things that were very important, and then layered it in with the work and the children's healthcare and her husband's willingness to support her. So she asked for more support around the home, and she also started putting in boundaries with her NHS work. And then we worked together for about 4 or 5 months. And when I caught up with her a few years later, what she'd done is she had gone fully self-employed. So she had control over her schedule. She had every Wednesday off. Her kids' issues were resolved in a really brilliant way because some of them were connected to her own stress levels. She was seeing her family more often. And she was less fearful of getting older, because underneath this was also, she'd lost her dad when he was 50, and another one of her, I think it was her brother-in-law, had also died quite suddenly when he was 50, and she was coming up to her 50th birthday. So we'd released some fear, and we got curious about the triggers, And they were multiple. So there was a hormonal element, there was a blood sugar element, and then there was a boundaries element. So what I'm wanting you to walk away with here is to notice that if rage and those big emotions are feel like they are changing your definition of yourself, or feel like they're out of character, to give yourself the time and the space to get curious about what's going on there and what the triggers might be, because it's really powerful when you do. Oh, and I meant to say at the beginning, if you want to, if you've got any questions about any of this as we go through, pop them in the chat, and we'll come to them a little bit later.
I
Okay.
think what's personally very interesting for me,
Mm.
Leslie, when you did mention this, is that a lot of us approach midlife as complaining like, "Hey, we are no longer as young as we used to be. We
Yeah.
no longer, feel as motivated, or our body is not the same."
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from you, from the way you approaching transition, is that see it from a lens of curiosity, and also
Mm.
see it as an opportunity of redesigning life,
Yes.
instead of saying, this, not this is no longer fitting me, or I'm not no longer fitting in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
Identifying what fits me now, right?
Yes.
Identifying what's right for me now. So it's like a reinvention of ourselves rather than
Yeah.
dreading the past.
And that's so exciting, I think. I think that there is this sense that we don't have to be trapped in our current way of working. And actually that leads, thank you for that, because that leads perfectly into my next slide, which sounds negative. There is none that, I don't know if anyone here has noticed that connection between lack of energy and a sense of kind of not feeling a sense of hope, of feeling a little bit joyless. But let's leave that for now. And I'm going to ask you again to just slow down and stop. Put your feet on the ground, hands on your lap or wherever they feel comfortable, and cast your eyes down. And once again, we're just going to take a few deep breaths in through the nose. And then as you exhale, allow your shoulders to relax. Allow your spine to lengthen. And just relax. Deep breath in and a long exhale. And one more deep breath in. And a long exhale. And we're just going to sit and allow the breath to just return to normal. Rashmi, I don't know if you can mute whoever is got their microphone on. And just for a moment, yeah, just so that's less of a distraction. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so we're just going to come back to the breath. Allow ourselves to get present without distraction. And what I'd like you to do is notice if your brain is buzzing and whirling with all of the things that you need to do for the rest of the day before you go to bed or tomorrow morning, and just see if you can let go of that whirling. Just imagine it just kind of just whirling away out of your head. We know it'll come back later, and that's okay, but just put it down for a while. And what I want you to do now, put down the racing thoughts, and I want you to imagine in your body how it feels when you have had the best day ever. So perhaps you've just come back from time out and away with other people. Perhaps you've done something you really wanted to. Perhaps you've been on your own. You've had the best day ever. Your heart feels full of joy. Your head feels calm. Your body feels rejuvenated. You've had the best day ever. And I want you to notice how that feels in your body. You can think of a moment in the past, or you can think of something you would like to do in the future. But I want you to feel that feeling. And you feel that in your heart. Perhaps you feel it in your belly. Perhaps you feel it in your throat or your head. Notice what that energy feels like, because you've had the best day ever. Breathe into that energy, that positivity, that joy, and that fun. Perhaps see it as a golden light that starts to expand and covers your whole body. Just allow it, don't question it, and just allow it to be a sense of joy and energy and positivity. And then just gently allow yourself to come back into your body, to notice your breath, to notice your feet on the floor, your hands on your legs, your chair. Notice your spine. And see if you can hold on to a little bit of that feeling and that glow in your body as you open your eyes and come into the room. And what I hope with that is that in that moment, it got you to connect with a sense of joy and calm and peace, and that you enjoyed that moment. And that you notice also that that's something that you could connect with on a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday morning or a Sunday evening, depending on where you are in the world. And that you could do that by simply thinking about it. But often in this midlife phase, our lack of energy, our kind of sort of slowing down, our sense of low mood can be connected with a bit of, we can find it harder to connect to joy. We can feel a sense of disconnection from others. It can make us want to withdraw, or you can feel like it's harder to access fun or even optimism without sapping your precious energy. And yes, there's a hormonal explanation to this, as Rashmi said it earlier. There's a connection between estrogen and serotonin and our happy hormones. There's a relation between progesterone and the connections in our brain and how quickly we can make those connections, and brain fog, and can sap our confidence and can take away our joy. But there's also this life stage identity shift that I want to talk about briefly, as Rashmi talked about a minute ago, this sense that actually we're in midlife, and we don't see an awful lot of positivity about midlife in the media. Aging is seen as something that's like that's negative, and that part of the negativity of our experience comes from what we've been told our whole lives about how aging isn't a positive thing. Whereas I see it as an opportunity. Like, yes, some doors are closed. I think my marathon running days are over, but I reckon I can still climb mountains. And part of my visualization of who I'm going to be in my 70s is I am standing on top of a mountain, probably in the UK, so it's not a very big one, but that's who I am. But there's a chance for us to think about who it is we want to be next, and who it is that we want to be in this moment, and how it is that we want to access joy. Where I get my joy from is more about smaller groups of people, is more about time outside in nature, is about being able to lift a heavier weight, rather than perhaps the parties and adventures of my youth that were very different. And so it can be hormone related, but it also can be, this can be hormone related, it can be related to our identity, but also we can feel a bit stuck. We can feel like we're stuck a little bit in our life stage, in a routine, that there's no space for you to cater for your needs, that there's or for you to even consider what they are. And so my kind of ask for you in talking about this is to go, and in taking you through that little joy meditation, is to think about where could you meet needs that bring you more joy. Could it be about accessing different kinds of creativity? Could it be about finding joy in the discomfort of this change, of anticipating something great that's happening next? I had a client who had really enjoyed lockdown in COVID, unlike many of us, because it gave her time and space. She worked in hospitality, but it gave her time and space to develop other interests. She trained as a health coach. She was developing interests in other aspects. And then once lockdown lifted, she was back to a job in hospitality and feeling like she was rushing and had no time for anything, no time to cook properly. And she got to a point where it felt like her partner didn't recognize her anymore because her vitality was being sapped away. And so we talked about this future planning and helped her uncover what her real needs were, not just okay, I want to exercise more and do this, but actually she didn't want to live where she was living anymore. She didn't want to work where she was working anymore, but she knew it would be like a several step process to getting to where she wanted to be. But by the end of our work together, what she'd done is she had found a new job. She'd actually decided that she was going to move in with her parents, with her husband and her son, briefly, because she'd identified a property she wanted to buy, and that she was making this big relocation, and she felt a sense of hope and joy again. So for her, that was a shift away from not meeting her needs and being stuck in a rut, which is really helpful. And it gave her energy back. And this energy and fatigue is the third aspect of kind of our emotional difficulties with the emotional shifts and identity shifts of perimenopause, when we feel like we lose our energy and we don't really know, and it can feel like we're losing our identity. We don't have the same levels of energy. I'm not as sociable as I used to be, but I still love seeing people, but just not too many people. But I want to note first, before I move on to this, I just want to help you to shift your energy. You've been sitting down and listening to this, or you're still juggling a million things while you're listening in the background. I want you to stop for a moment and just see if you can stand up. Stand up and lift your arms above your head. And you're just going to shake your arms around. Okay, you're going to feel a bit silly. You're going to shake your arms around, shake your hand. If you don't want to do that, you can just shake your hands, shake your legs, shake your feet. Just shift that energy. Get the blood circulation moving. Get your heart rate up just a little bit. Just this shake, shake, shake. And notice that feels different. I can feel kind of my arms kind of like slightly tingling. I've just changed the blood flow. I've just shifted my energy just by shaking my hands. Feels really good. I'm gonna have to do a bit more of that after this call, I think. But it's when we can feel overwhelmed and sluggish, and we feel like it can be hard to keep going on things. It can be hard to generate momentum. And what we want is to find a well-resourced and more stable energy supply. And some of that comes from good nutrition. A lot of it comes from good nutrition, prioritizing sleep and moving and getting time outside. But it also comes from understanding where your energy is going, which isn't just about kind of moving and working hard. Sometimes our energy is sapped because we're doing things that don't light us up anymore. Like when you talk to Rashmi about Elvie and the developments, her energy is high. It's so exciting what she's doing. If you ever get me talking about perimenopause in conversation at a party, I can get very excited about that. And energy and that kind of low energy and crashing fatigue can be part of perimenopause that we just want a sticking plaster over, and makes us very vulnerable to advertisements for supplements and quick fixes, or it makes us vulnerable to drinking a lot of caffeine and sugar to try and generate energy that way. But some of it, but we can slow ourselves down and get curious about where our energy is going, what is sapping our energy, and why are we feeling so low. And I think with Alvi, some of the testing can be useful for that, and the conversations that they have with you through their portal. I'm not quite sure how it works, Rashmi. That can be really helpful, and just being able to track our energy and being really careful with that can help. I have found with working with clients that sometimes a focus on gut health can make a massive difference to energy. For example, I can see Rashmi nodding away, because then actually you're able to, a healthy gut means that you're getting your energy from your food. With other
We see
clients,
this
actually.
pattern in a lot of our patients as well.
Yeah.
Working with Olvi, and you rightly said, right? Nutrition is a very, very important
Yeah.
aspect of energy. It's not just everything we eat will give us energy, but a lot of it can just slow us down. So
Yeah.
just identifying, and not every form of nutrition is right for everybody.
Yeah.
Our body types are unique. Our sleep patterns are different. Our work patterns are different.
Yeah.
Even movements are unique to us. For some of us, high intensity is good, and for some of us, actually, high intensity is deteriorating
Absolutely.
for our health.
Yeah.
So, really getting that personalized understanding of what role does nutrition, sleep, and movement plays individually,
Yeah.
in our lives is super, super important. Sure, Alvi does, help with that. But Lesley, what you touched upon, saying power of understanding where our energy is going, is
Yeah.
super important. Because while we can keep focusing on that, we're feeling fatigue, we don't have the same energy that we do. I think then
Mm.
it becomes even more important to understand that with our lack of better word, declining energy reserves.
Yeah.
It's not we are not as pumped up as we used to be.
Yeah.
How can we, while we use nutrition, sleep, and movement in the right way to amplify our energy, how can we also understand where the energy is
Yeah.
going and maybe avoid things which is killing our, reserves?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also, I think there's a sense of understand. Sometimes you do have to push yourself to exhaustion because you've got, because things are outside. I've been looking after my mum who has Alzheimer's for the last 5 or 6 years. And sometimes I've just had to push through because it's been awful, some of it, just helping to support her, not being able to access the support that she needs or try and identify what that even is. And it would sap my energy, but then I needed to also work on making sure that I built that energy back up again. So for me, there was a balance between having to push myself there, and then what I identified is that I needed more calm. So I made it really important to me to do 8 to 10 minutes of mindful meditation in the morning. And that calm to start the day had a positive impact all the way through the day. So like getting on top of because the other thing I noticed is that with that stress, with those difficult, and I've seen this time and again in my clients as well, but I still did the same thing, which was then if you're exhausted, your energy is really low, you can end up eating more sugar, finding your nutrition like goes off because you're in a rush all the time, and then that means that it saps your energy. But also that can be part and parcel of that menopausal weight gain that so many of us are concerned about. So yeah, looking at that can be really powerful, but not just accepting that low energy is where you want to be. Okay, we are coming very close to the end of this webinar, and Rashmi has brought up our slide about what's next. So
We
I'll
have a
hand over
couple of
to you.
questions
Mm.
in the chat as well.
Oh,
Please,
great.
we are open to questions. Please feel free to keep adding your question. And in this session, we have spoken about energy, hormones,
Mm.
managing fatigue, managing our identity shift, right? And if any of this conversation resonated with you, I invite all of us to just think about what's next,
Mm.
what's next for us tomorrow, for that matter, right? While information is useful, information hardly creates change. And after speaking to numerous women, who are navigating through hormonal change, what we've realized that, that it's that consistent support that helps
Yeah.
us in building habitual shifts, building changes that
Mhm.
really, require a community that can, you know, work together to help in navigating these transitions more
Mm.
smoothly and efficiently. So Leslie and I have worked together to put together a 90-day program. And this 90-day program, 90-day support program, is essentially, if you're someone who's actively navigating this hormonal shift, this is right for you. If you're someone who's here just to proactively, know more about perimenopause, menopause, this might not be a right fit for you. But if you are navigating it actively day in, day out, and you're seeing symptoms, and you are, maybe emotionally experiencing, shifts, this might be a good program for you. This has two kind of support. One, 90 days full access to Volvi, which would mean daily tracking, personalized protocol of nutrition, sleep, workout, and, more integrative in nature. Weekly check-ins for you to understand where is your health improving, where is it not improving yet. Understanding the root cause, the why behind everything that you're experiencing, and also identifying risks. Because the unpredictability in hormones, while it brings, it's confusing and chaotic and impact gives us some symptoms today, it also can lead to some effects and symptoms later. So identifying risks in advance, and a 24/7 support while you are navigating all these transition shifts, changes, in between your clinical
Mhm.
appointments. We also get three 60 minutes, 1 hour live group coaching with Lesley. Like I said, Lesley is an integrative approach, and she's somebody who, brings, connects the hormones to well-being, to identity, to who we are becoming as a person. And her support includes, understanding how to shift habits, um, how to manage energy better. Most importantly, all hormone shifts can be very deteriorating about our beliefs about ourselves, our
Mhm.
mindset. And, and this transition requires us to update our mindset. That's most important. And that's something that, all Leslie helps with, while helping us, build confidence and clarity as we are navigating and moving towards the next phase of our life. And like I said, this includes two category of supports, and if they were to be individually given, it would be approximately 1299 price. But given, our both Leslie and I have come together to say that, this is the kind of support that we need to make it more accessible. It has to be integrative and accessible at the same time. And for the cohort of folks here right now with us, we are offering this at a 99 per month for 3 months. Feel free to sign up if this is a right fit for you. There's a QR code. We can also drop a link in the chat. And with that, we'll quickly jump on the Q&A. We'll not
Mhm.
badger about this. If this is a right fit, please feel free to access the payment link. If not, you can reach out to us as well. We'll drop the details in the chat. We have one question come up, and we're open
Mhm.
to Q&A now. Maybe I can stop sharing my
Yeah.
screen, um, and we'll drop the details in the chat. I'll stop sharing my screen and just open for Q&A real quick. So one of the questions that Akansha has asked is it possible to notice sign of perimenopause as early as 33, 33, 35? Um, I'll maybe answer it more from a biology perspective.
Mhm.
Leslie, maybe you could share something from your experience
Mhm.
in working with women, right? So it is possible, Akansha, to have symptoms while the average age of hitting menopause is 51. The hormone changes we spoke about years prior to reaching menopause, which is perimenopause, can start a little earlier, even as early as the 30s and mid 30s, and this happens
Mhm.
more in um, Asian demographic
Yeah.
than other demographics. So it is very much possible. While age is not the only parameter to kind of give a definitive yes or no, a lot of it is you can see in symptoms. So symptoms such as fatigue, brain fog, you will see some mood changes. Maybe you're seeing an effect on your sleep.
Mm.
You're not sleeping either full 8 hours like a deep good REM sleep, or you are maybe seeing that your sleep is getting disrupted
Mm.
during the mid 8 hours. And also, one I think one common question that comes up in a lot of conversation is there's a lot of overlap in the symptoms of menopause, perimenopause, and thyroid. So this does require biomarker intervention, to really test it out and understand that if we are experiencing symptoms as early as 30s, it could be a thyroid condition as well, not just menopause, perimenopause, but it could be there are chances that it could be an onset of perimenopause.
Yeah. And I'd add to that actually there are other conditions as well that could also kind of mimic or have a parallel with perimenopause conditions. So our hormones do start shifting and changing from our mid-30s. Progesterone particularly being the one that starts to lower. If you have a family in your mid-30s, then they may well have been through pregnancies and you're still kind of coming back to normality again, whatever a normal cycle is. Or the stress sometimes of raising a young family in the current world can often be a trigger. So as I said, my burnout symptoms definitely was like, am I perimenopausal or am I just exhausted? And that had an impact on digestive issues and all kinds of other things. So, and again, but then sometimes you can just be told that it's IBS or it's depression when actually there's a hormonal condition. So getting some tests can be useful if you're concerned it might be perimenopause, as can just simply tracking your menstrual cycle, seeing if there are any patterns in the symptoms that you're experiencing.
Lesley, there's another question that we had is around understanding balancing hormones in 170s. Is there something that you could, while there's an biological and more lifestyle answer to this as well, is there something that you're going to share from your experience? Any insights?
Balancing hormones
in the 70s.
In the 70s, when you are in your 70s, that's always really interesting. So for some women, they continue to experience symptoms of perimenopause. So symptoms that we associate with menopausal change, with hormone change, continue into later life. And it's almost like your body hasn't yet adjusted to that shift, that change, that reduction in estrogen. Particularly hot flashes is the symptom I hear most that carries on for longer. And vasomotor symptoms, those temperature symptoms, are one of those things where there is a lack of clarity around exactly what causes it, but stress and temperature change are big ones. And also there's a variety of different medical interventions that help, as well as alternative and complementary health things. But if it's not just hot flashes, though, balancing hormones, I think I would encourage you to incorporate phytoestrogens into your diet anyway as you go through this phase. So phytoestrogens are estrogen-like substances that are found in certain plants. So soy being one of them. Lots of different plants and vegetables have phytoestrogens in them. I'm a massive fan of linseed, adding ground linseed into smoothies and salads and all kinds of, and even into kind of curries and stir fries for a bit of extra texture. But equally lentils, pulses, and that kind of thing have phytoestrogens, which benefits our gut health. And good gut health benefits our hormone health as well, because it helps us to be balanced. So adding in phytoestrogens, adding in plenty of fiber, making sure blood sugar is balanced, because that is a trigger for symptoms as well, can be really helpful. And just giving your body permission. Giving your body permission to adjust comes from those lifestyle adjustments. So without knowing the person in detail, it's harder to tell, but those would be some of the things I would look at.
Yeah. I think we're beyond time, but there's just one last question that has come in saying that for someone who's yet to experience most of these symptoms, what are the proactive and preventive measures one can take which will help? I think the answer to this would be that preventive would be just step one, track as much as you can, so that you prevent future deterioration either in form of bone health, in form of emotional health, mental health. And everybody's body behaves differently
Mm.
during this transition. While some of us you know might deal with challenges regards to maybe strength and muscle mass. For some of us, it might be more oriented towards sleep. For
Mm.
some, it could be towards stress, and some could be more towards emotional balance. So this transition is unique for all of us. I
Yeah.
think some of the areas that we can proactively start focusing on is one, focus on strength training for building
Mm.
right muscle mass. Make sure we get the right amount of sleep. Sleep is most important in this
Mm.
part of life so that we can prepare better for the transition. Manage stress. Our stress exists. I think our day-to-day lives are has some or the other kind of stress, either personal or professional. What's most important is our response towards stress.
Mm.
So building more resilience towards
Yeah.
stress. In terms of nutrition, prioritizing protein and healthy fats more than anything else, and blood sugar regulation.
Mm.
And while we do all this, it's important to understanding our body, understanding our patterns, energy patterns, our mood patterns, our
Yeah.
sleep patterns, and our symptom correlation. The
Mm.
more awareness that we build now will help us in early risk identification,
Yeah.
and is easier to recognize changes before they become unavoidable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lastly, what I would add is having a strong sense of social support.
Yeah.
This is the part where we cannot, a lot of us navigate these changes feeling isolated, and while we know that this is a transition that happens in every woman's life, it's very difficult for us to really open up and share the way this makes us feel, not just physically a change in body, a change in our body and beauty, but also how this makes us feel internally. We feel like we are
Mm.
not good enough, we are not, we are not as strong as we used to be, we are not the same leader that we used to be, right? So
Mm.
social support, building that social support is immensely important.
Yeah. Thank you. I
So
think that's a really good question. Is it absolutely, that's what I would say too, along with not dreading it, along
yes.
with seeing it as an opportunity and
Yeah.
going, oh, I'm curious. Who
Yeah.
will I be next?
Yeah.
What am I going to leave behind? And what am I going to bring in? Because I think that optimism and curiosity can be really powerful
Yeah.
there too.
Lovely. Thanks all. Thank you for joining in. I think we're past way past time, but thank you. This has been a pleasure, and thank you, Lesley, for this opportunity and for joining us today.
Oh,
I think this gives us a good sense of how to prepare better for these transitions.
yeah. Thank you so much for getting in touch and for us giving me the opportunity to do this with you. It's been really interesting. So, and I hope those of you watching this have found it helpful and will enjoy the rest of your Sunday wherever you're
Thank
going.
you. Bye bye. Bye.